Good evening, YouTube. You guys are not watching another segment of the TheCaliEffect. Today, for Yu-Gi-Oh! Logic, we're going to be doing identifying staple cards and how do they fit in this current meta or in any other meta in specifics. And we're going to start off with Mystical Space Typhoon. Now, Mystical Space Typhoon reads, target one spell or trap card on the field. Destroy that target. Very simple line attacks. One of the easiest line attacks to consider. Now, before I actually start going to depth with staple cards, now since I remembered, I wanted to tell you guys a little story. Long ago, before archetypes, so this was when the TheCaliEffect was in his prime, probably like when he was 20. Nah, I'm just playing. But long ago, before staples before synchros existed, before Xyz existed, before archetypes were even thought of, there was something called decks that were just cards. You put the best available cards you had into a deck and you played with it. It's practically how it is. Now, granted, you could run Donzaloos with Mystic Tomatoes, you can run Donzaloos, or you could just run Mystic Tomatoes for other targets. But ultimately, there was just a whole bunch of good cards that you put into a deck and made it that way. That being said, almost everything was damn near a staple. Since now, if you fast forward to 2014, almost who knows how many years later, I want to say about 8, 9, a lot of the staples are either banned, limited, or really bad that we used to play back then. So you're going to need to keep up on certain cards and at least have at least 3 of this card for your own person so you can use whenever you decide to play Yu-Gi-Oh! Now back to the thing I want to talk to you about is Mystical Space Typhoon. I feel that Mystical Space Typhoon will always be revered as a staple because it's simple. You destroy one spell or trap card on the field. Now granted, there are decks that do not use Mystical Space Typhoon whatsoever. But the reason behind them not using it is because either A, they already have an answer to back row in the form of monsters or whatever other card they're using, or B, they don't need to interact with back row because back row normally interacts with monsters. So in other words, they're probably playing burn. Mystical Space Typhoon is extremely good because it gets rid of threats. It gets rid of so many cards that are unset. I think the best thing about Mystical Space Typhoon that it has going for it is that it has the second best game mechanic in Yu-Gi-Oh! Which means that it is a quick play spell card, being the second best thing you can have on a Yu-Gi-Oh! Card other than a counter trap. The biggest reason is because you can activate quick play spell cards anytime during your turn, unless you set it and except for the damage step. And, well, I don't want to say except for the damage step because there are cards that can be activated on the damage step. But let's just take the icon for itself, except for the damage step. And you can set it and activate it on your opponent's turn. Granted, quick play spell cards are probably some of the least supported cards in the game, but that's why. They're just so powerful like that. An extremely good card and should never be underrated. I feel that Mystical Space Typhoon, since you know it's been in the game for about 10 years, it'll probably be in the game for just a little longer. Now, here is actually a good argument for Mystical Space Typhoon. Its replacement. Mystical Space Typhoon has a replacement? You never would guess. Because, I mean, like I said, the card's so versatile. But cards do get replaced over time. And this just happens to be one of them. Forbidden Lands. Now, there's a theory, or actually a saying that I have for Forbidden Lands. Whereas Mystical Space Typhoon is asking for permission, Forbidden Lands is asking for forgiveness. Because when your opponent activates a card effect to get rid of your monster, Forbidden Lance essentially protects the card. Forbidden Lance also helps you hit a different array of cards, such as Fiendish Chain. I'm sorry, not Fiendish Chain, such as Bottomless Trap Hole when being activated. You don't have to preemptively hit it with Mystical Space Typhoon. When you summon, your opponent activates Bottomless, you activate Lance, and your opponent loses the Bottomless. As opposed to you having to baiting out all their other face down cards, you have to finding out what's the right card to Typhoon, or you just blind MSTing like a scrub and hoping to get it right. Regardless, Forbidden Lance takes out that guessing work, and it also has multiple things going for it on top of that. The first thing is that Forbidden Lance is an attack modifier. Now, when I say that, a lot of people think, oh, duh, shrink's better. No. That's not one of the only reasons why Forbidden Lance is a superior staple card. It is because it gets rid of back row threats, in a sense. It is an attack modifier, so if your opponent does not play spell or trap cards to hurt your monsters, at least you can win some of your battles. And if all else fails, it's unaffected by spells and traps for the rest of that turn. Really good card we have going on there. And that's what separates Forbidden Lance to the top of the list from other spell cards. Now, there's a card that I've actually want to talk about that is taking a decline in its staple worthiness, and it actually is a really good card. So you would look and you're like, why is this card ever seeing a decline? And that card is being Dark Hole. Dark Hole's effect reads destroy all monsters on the field. Very simple effect, and it fits the TheCaliEffect's requirements. It destroys all it has one line of text. Text is really good. It destroys all monsters. The bad thing about Dark Hole is that a lot of the top decks need their field presence, and they typically always have field presence. I mean, if you're a good player, Girgias, Dragon Rulers, even Mermail to an extent, they've all dropped Dark Hole from their main board, and at the most play them in the sideboard because they feel, and this is exactly what I feel for most of them too, you're having so much board presence on the field. If your opponent were to ever summon a monster or have monsters that you couldn't get over, you could always find an out within your Synchros or your X-Seeds to be able to get over their monsters. Dark Hole isn't always necessary. Dark Hole will probably hurt you more often than not. Also, just having it in your hand sitting there dead is not the best thing in a world where it could be something else. That logic is widely accepted by a lot of great players, and I'm starting to accept it too. Dark Hole is not as great as it used to be, but it still is a very, very good card. Now, let's move on to traps. Traps, I actually would like to talk about something that this card used to be nothing less of amazing, and now I can give you multiple reasons why this card is not that great anymore. That's right, Mirror Force. Now, you would never thought that the Mirror Force would be on the list of seeing a decline out of its staples. I actually completely take it out of the staple bracket and not consider it a staple, just as a situational card that grants you a lot if you do get it right. Now, Mirror Force reads, when an opponent monster declares an attack, destroy all attack position monsters your opponent controls. That's a pretty good card when you read it. But let's get into the concept of this Yu-Gi-Oh game. When your opponent plays Yu-Gi-Oh, a competitive deck, a deck that is winning YCS as of right now, more often than not, they're summoning so many monsters on the board, or they're already using the monster's effects, that by the time they've generated so much advantage, by the time they actually decide to attack, Mirror Force doesn't do anything for you. Another case is that they already have monsters that are either Mirror Force doesn't affect them, or Mirror Force just helps them gain advantage. For example, if you Mirror Force a Mermail Abyss Lin, I mean, it's not the best thing. Almost the same thing as Mirror Forcing a Girgagan X. It's going to go to the graveyard, it's just going to get its effect, and he's just going to be able to go back off and go back into another of whatever he can, just because you Mirror Force. That being said, Mirror Force is still a really good card. But cards like Mirror Force, cards that have to wait for your opponent to enter battle and attack, are definitely losing their luster because they have to wait for so long to activate their card effects. It's just not really good right now. A card that I really would give an exception and still consider a staple though, because this card is just too amazing. A lot of people used to consider this card worse than Mirror Force. Oops, let me spell it right. Oops, I've been spelling it wrong. A lot of people have considered this card a lot worse than Mirror Force, but I've considered this card superior to Mirror Force for so long. The main reason is why is because when an opponent monster declares an attack, you target that monster and banish that target. Now, granted, Mirror Force can't get over Leo. Deep Prison can't get over Leo. Mirror Force can. But Deep Prison, if I were to activate a card or to play a trap card that requires so many things to pass by to get rid of a threat, then it would be Dimensional Prison, because a lot of decks that the opponent plays or that are meta right now are specifically reliant on the graveyard and cannot recover from cards being banished. Once it's banished more often than not. There's no way of getting it back, or no cards that the opponent would play to get it back. That being said, I feel that Dimensional Prison is a superior card and a staple. Not all battle-reliant trap cards are going out of favor. I just feel all of them except for Dimensional Prison are going out of favor for that said reason. Anytime where you have to wait until the correct game state to activate a card, as opposed to being activate the card in any other way or any time that you want, typically the card either has to have a serious amount of advantage or the card has to be just that good. Granted, with trap cards, I'm not going to talk to you guys about the Holy Trinity. The Holy Trinity is Compulse, Bottomless, and Solemn, which I shouldn't even question their stability in there. If you're running traps, genuine traps, you run those 3. It's not else much to be said. The last card that I would consider a staple, it's been on again, off again, but still, Fiendish Chain is an extraordinary card. Now, Fiendish Chain reads, activate this card by targeting one effect monster on the field. Its effect is negated. Also, it cannot attack. When this card is destroyed, when it is destroyed, destroy this card. That would have been cool if it was the other way around. Fiendish Chain is simple. In any type of meta, which is Yu-Gi-Oh nowadays, where monsters run formats, when monsters dictate the pace of the game, stopping those effect monsters are key, and Fiendish Chain provides you the best alternative. While it is being prone to Mystical Space Typhoon and Forbidden Lance, unlike Effect Veiler, it prevents the opponent from attacking. It also, no, I think that's about it. It prevents the opponent from attacking. I don't think there's no also to it, other than also it has cool art. Fiendish Chain is an amazing card because it prevents the opponent from attacking. It continuously stops the monster's effect, and as long as the monster doesn't have an effect to be tributed off the field or some other stuff, it stops just about everything that you can imagine. Fiendish Chain is a really good card. It's actually the best trap card in the game as of right now, because of the ability to negate monster effects at the same time and prevent the monster from attacking, as well as being able to be activated at any given time of a turn. Now granted, it does have its drawbacks. Like I said before, it's prone to Mystical Space Typhoon and Forbidden Lance for a turn, but it also has its upsides, as opposed to Effect Veiler, Mirror Force, Dimensional Prison, and all that other stuff. Like I said, you can activate it at any given time, provided that it is an effect monster you're targeting, and it negates the monster's effect as well as preventing it from attacking. Really good card. Now, the last card I want to talk to you guys about for main deck cards would be in the monster category. And amazingly, if you guys have played Yu-Gi-Oh this long, we've came from a long way to running all of our monsters being cookie cutter staples. To me, only saying one monster is considered a staple in any deck, and that card is being Thunder King Ryle. Now, a lot of people are looking, why just Thunder King Ryle? Well, read Thunder King Ryle. Neither player can add cards from their deck to their hand. During either player's turn, when your opponent would special summon exactly one monster, you can send this card to the graveyard, and they get their special summon. And if you do, destroy it. What? Hold on. You get a mistake and a Black Horn of Heaven, which I will talk about because I forgot about it, in one card. Oh my! What is this Thunder King Ryle card doing? This card's just amazing. Thunder King Ryle on its own right can win games. Now, more often than not, you set 5 back row or 4 back row, you summon Thunder King Ryle, your opponent is scooping because of 2 things. They can't get over Thunder King Ryle, or Thunder King Ryle itself. It is that good. In a game where most, if not all decks require, actually all meta decks, let's put it that way. Either A, they special summon from the deck, or B, they search from the deck. For the exception of Dragon Rulers who like to mill to the deck, but a deck that shouldn't really, let's not get into that. This card stops it all. But then on top of that, there's more. I know, there's more in Thunder King Ryle. It prevents the opponent from special summoning Synchros and Xyz and cards like Master Hyperion and stuff. Thunder King Ryle is just too strong. Now, I know there's a couple other monsters that you guys are thinking of, like, what about Blackluster Soldier? Well, when you look at Blackluster Soldier, you have to look at how the game is shaped. All of the meta decks right now do not run light and dark monsters to accommodate for summoning Blackluster Soldier. That being said, most of the decks that can summon Blackluster Soldier are not that great. So that's why Blackluster Soldier isn't considered a staple. It has to be able to fit in all of the decks. More often than not, it has to be fit in the meta decks at any given time, and it has to be effective. Thunder King Ryle, I promise you, if you made it in Mermails and you summon it against any player, they're gonna look at you like, well, I lose. You're gonna get if you turn 1 summon Thunder King Ryle, the percentages of you getting a game win if your opponent can't get over Thunder King Ryle because of Thunder King Ryle, it's pretty high. But now back to traps, like I forgot to mention. Black Horn of Heaven, a card that has been seeing so much popularity because of its amazing effect. And I think that this card has deserved this staple status since it was a rare ultimate rare in the pack. Now, its effect reads, when your opponent would special summon a monster, negate the special summon, and if you do, destroy it. Black Horn of Heaven is simple. now, before I actually start elaborating why Black Horn Heaven is so great, I want to let you guys know something special. Black Horn Heaven cannot negate monsters special summoned through card effects. So for example, if I would be special summoning a monster through the effect of Monster Reborn, Black Horn Heaven cannot stop, negate, or destroy Monster Reborn or the monster special summoned through Monster Reborn, because it's not special summoning the card itself. Black Horn Heaven negates cards like Synchro Summons, Exceed Summons, Contact Fusions, and monsters that summon themselves, typically by some other cost, such as Master Hyperion, Banish an Agent to special summon. That's what Black Horn can stop. Black Horn Heaven has seen a mass spike in play just because of that. A lot of people are starting to realize that a lot of monsters being summoned are being summoned in that particular way. And when the opponent does special summon, man, it's probably Black Hornable. So with that being said, Black Horn Heaven has become the superior card in forms of stopping that. Now on top of that, Black Horn Heaven has the most amazing thing about it. It is the best icon card in the game. That's right, it's a counter trap. And the only thing that can stop counter trap cards, guess what, are other counter trap cards. So that means no quick play spell cards, no other trap cards, no quick monster effects, none of that. Black Horn Heaven is at the top of the jungle, and unless you play wire traps, your monster's effect is your monster is gonna stop being summoned. Now, what I want to talk to you guys about is how basically Yu-Gi-Oh works and how to determine how staples are going to be good. Think about it like this: when a monster is summoned, from its time it's summoning until it hits the graveyard, it's going to do some type of damage to the board. Now, if you don't have cards to stop it from the time that it's summoned, whatever it does on the time being on the field, whether it's from destroying all of your monsters, or just preventing you from being able to attack, it's doing something to help the opponent. Black Horn Heaven essentially gets rid of that card and disrupts whatever your opponent is trying to do, all in one little card. And then on top of that, the ability to say, hey, I really can't be stopped. That's pretty good. I really like the way Black Horn Heaven is built, the way it's made, the way its effect works, and it just alters the way we play Yu-Gi-Oh! If you guys are playing cards that really want to stop the opponent, if you guys are playing cards to win, please play cards that can be activated at any time in the game state, as opposed to cards like Mirror Force, because Mirror Force is so subjective to back row removal and just any other type of threats. Like I said, by the time I start attacking, I don't care about Mirror Force. I probably already won anyways. You just saved yourself a turn. Now we can go on to Exceeds. Now there's only out of all the Exceeds, I think I'm going to talk about rank 3s, rank 4s, and rank 7s. Now the reason why I'm talking about these three is because 3s, 4s, and 7s seem to be the most played rank monsters. So let's get on to rank 3s. I feel like he is an extremely underrated staple. It's Mech Equipped Engineer. Man, this card's good. And it reads, once returned during either player's turn, you can detach one material from this card. Then target one face-up attack position monster you control. Change it to defense position. And if you do, it cannot be destroyed by battle or by card effects. Now, I think the reason why this card is so underrated, because it was a number hunter's super rare. Now, if it were secret rare out of the set would wind up Zen mains, this card would probably be 80, 90 bucks off the bat, just because its effect is so cool. Being able to detach one card, then targeting one of any of your monsters, and then being able to prevent it from being destroyed by battle or card effects for the rest of the turn. There's so many applications where Mech Equipped Engineer is just so good, and I don't even want to apply any of them, because if all else fails, he can protect himself. He can protect himself from Fiendish Chain. He can protect himself from Torrentials, Bottomless, just all these cards that I was just talking about. Save Black Horn Heaven. Mech Equipped Engineer can save himself from. On top of that, he can still save himself from Mirror Force, Deep Prison, and all that other stuff. Just too good. This card is just too good, and it definitely deserves to see more play, just because of the ability to activate it during any time on the turn, any time during a turn, any time during a chain link, and the ability to save himself as well as other monsters. Now, the next card I want to talk about, because if you guys didn't see this card being good, I really don't know what to tell you. I mean, like, I didn't even want to accept that it was good when it first came out because it was a Ghost Trick card. But Ghost Trick a la carte, a card that will see play as long as face down cards are still relevant in this game. And seeing that spells and trap cards really shouldn't be going anywhere, a la carte will be prawn. Now, a la carte reads, your opponent cannot target other Ghost Trick monsters or any face down defense position monsters for attacks. Now, that effect don't even sound good. Read that second part. It says, hi, you can't attack my Gear armor, but that's not really the point. You can detach one XC material from this card. Target one set card your opponent controls. Destroy that target. You can only activate Ghost Trick a la carte once per turn. If this card is sent to the graveyard, target one other Ghost Trick card in your graveyard. Add that target to your hand. So, forget the very first part of its effect and the very last part of its effect. Your face down monsters cannot be targeted for attacks. That's a good sign. Also, it is a Mystical Space Typhoon miniature nobleman cross out / rank 3 1800 attack monster all in one card. This card is pretty decent, pretty dope. And like I said, as long as back row cards exist, it will always have a spot in someone's rank 3 extra deck. Granted, it can be stopped by cards like Fiendish Chain, Bottomless, whatever, but it's good bait because it ultimately got rid of the card that you would be getting rid of anyway, so you can follow up with another play. Another thing is that if it does get to stay on the field, it gets to destroy 2 face down cards. Now, that's talking about wrecking it to the opponent. Now, on to rank 4s. And to be honest, there's only one. I know it seems crazy. Out of all the rank 4s, I only feel right now that there's only one rank 4 that I would indefinitely call a staple, hands down, no other, just nothing else about it. Like, there's no competition. He's a staple. And if you guys play rank 4s in your deck, which I'm practically asking if you play Yu-Gi-Oh, unless you play like Dragon Rulers, because even Mermails run it, then you should buy one of these. And if you can, buy it from me. But number 101 Silent Honor Arc reads, you can detach 2 materials from this card. Target one special summon monster your opponent controls in face-up attack position. Attach it to this card as a face-up XC material. You can only use the effect of 101 once per turn. If this card would be destroyed, you can detach 1 material from this card instead. This card is so good, I actually remembered its number. Now that is some type of miracle. I deserve some type of hand applause. Now, before I start getting into the effect, I want to talk about how good Konami has made this card. Wait, hold on, that's not its face? I could have swore that was his face. Oh well, it doesn't look like it. Anyways, the good things that Konami made about this card: you can only use Honor Arc once per turn. You can only target a special summon face-up attack position monster. And if it were to be destroyed, you can detach 1 XC material from the bag. Oh, one more thing. It also gets to equip the monster as an XC target, or XC material. This does a couple of things. First of all, it prevents the opponent from using the card that you attach as anything until they get rid of the arc. Secondly, you only can use 1 arc once per turn. It prevents it from being overly abused. Thirdly, it provides a protection. I think that's something, since I wasted 2 level 4 monsters to steal one of your monsters. I think that's a good thing, just to put it a little over the hump to make it pretty good. Honor Arc has proven itself time after time after time again to be a staple in this Yu-Gi-Oh metagame. As long as level 4 monsters exist in somebody's deck with an adequate enough number to exceed summon, Honor Arc should exist in someone's extra deck as well. It's just an extremely good card, really good effect, and very versatile at any given situation. That's exactly what you look for when you look for extra deck cards. So while I'm here, let's talk about Honor Arc's brother, who everybody seems to think that this card is, oh my god, why don't you consider this card staple? Now, I'm going to give you a couple reasons why I don't consider this card staple, which is, if you guys didn't know by now, it's Evil Swarm Exciton Knight. Now, Exciton Knight reads, once per turn during your main phase or your opponent's battle phase, if your opponent has more total cards in their hand and their side of the field than you do, you can detach 1 XC material from this card. Destroy all other cards on the field. Also, your opponent takes no further damage this turn. Now, this is why I think this card isn't the best card and isn't a staple card. Exciton Knight requires you to be losing to activate its effect in card advantage. Now, a better player would play his cards to maximize, his way of play. With that being said, Excited Knight would not be good just because you have to be losing and you can't activate it at any given time. It is a very good card, don't get me wrong, but since I already have to be losing, 9 times out of 10 when I summon Excited Knight, even if I blow up the field, I probably lost to a good player. Granted, there are times where Excited Knight will probably win you a game, and it does punish bad players from extending, but at that same notion, it also punishes good players for setting up their board too well sometimes. And like I said, if you're playing this card, you probably already lost, so it doesn't matter. I would like my staple cards to be able to be played any given time that I want, and be able to have, I don't know, better attack. I just don't like his face. He's an evil swan. Nah, I'm playing, but seriously, it's not a staple. As far as synchros, out of all the synchros that I can think of that are not on the forbidden list, there is one that comes to mind. There is one good one. That is, you're right, Black Rose Dragon, because it does exactly what Evil Swarm Excited Knight says, except there's no restriction. When this card is synchro summoned, you can destroy all cards on the field. That's all we have to read, okay? We don't have to read any more, just because we know what the rest of the other effect, unless you run plants, you don't care. Being able to synchro summon into a 7, because 7 is, I want to say, either the second or the third easiest to go into, 8 being the first. Being able to synchro to a 7, and then being able to blow up the field, and then provide further plays. You do not have to be at some distinct advantage. You just have to be able to synchro into a Black Rose Dragon. This card was arguably one of the most sought after cards to be banned at some given point in time. Card's amazing. A lot of times where Black Rose Dragon would lose you the game, or I can't think of them. And if all else fails, Black Rose Dragon is a level 7 monster to provide for rank 7 plays. And while I'm at it, we should probably go back to rank 7 since I just skipped to synchros. Out of all the rank 7s, there's only one. And I know you guys, so which one got left out, Big Eye or Draco Sack? And you guys will find out soon. Because Big Eye didn't get left out. That's right. There's a big reason why I didn't leave Big Eye out. It is a Change of Heart, Snatch of Steel, Never Give Your Monster Back type card effect at the cost of 2 level 7 monsters. That will never, ever lose its luster in any type of game. As you guys can see, snatching an opponent's monster now is more diluted than snatching your opponent's monsters before. Whereas with Dragon Rulers, you can actually use that monster. Before then, taking their monsters like Donzaloo and stuff like that probably meant you're going to gain some significant advantage. Now, if I'm playing Mermails and I take my opponent's Fire Fist Bear, doesn't mean anything. It doesn't help me whatsoever. Maybe for a rank 4 play, but still, not amazing. And it costs the monster, it costs Big Eye from attacking. Now, the reason why I put this over there is because it's still stealing your opponent's monster. Since then and now, since stealing your opponent's monster is so diluted now and it's still being played, that only says enough about Big Eye. Big Eye is amazing. Draco Sack, on the other hand, I feel Draco Sack is just like in the same level as Excited Knight. It is one notch before staple, but it's still an amazingly good card. The reason why I say this about Draco Sack is because it doesn't hold any of the qualities as some of the banned cards have or some of the limited cards I've ever had. Draco Sack relies on tokens to be face up on the field, and then you to tribute Mecha Phantom Beast monsters to destroy cards on the field. Not only that, it can't attack the same turn it's summoned. Now, don't get me wrong, that's pretty good effects right there, but I don't think it will be borderline amazing staple-like effect. There can be another card to replace Draco Sack as a level 7. I hope that there isn't another card to replace Big Eye, because I really feel that's bannable status. Woo! That being said, I covered the spells, the traps, the monsters, the synchros, the egg seeds. I want to know what you guys think are your staple cards. Please, guys, don't get on there talking about how Night Beam is superior to Mystical Space Typhoon. I don't really know what else to say, but I still want to hear what you guys' staple cards are, your opinions, everything you have to say about it. Like, comment, subscribe, but most of all, enjoy.